This is my perfect Power 6 for the 12-team playoff in College Football 26 Dynasty. I did a video on my main channel today, which was a conference realignment video in response to the college football playoff automatic qualifier changes for next season. And I'll put a link here at the beginning of the card, and I'll also put it at the end. But essentially, what's happening next season is that there's the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12 are all getting automatic qualifiers for their conference champion, regardless of where they're ranked in the CFP poll, and frankly, if they're ranked in the CFP poll. And the final automatic qualifier will go to the top-ranked G5 champion, and then, of course, Notre Dame has their top 12 thing that they've got signed in there. So I said the best way to actually do this thing is to get 6 power conferences, keep the rules as they are in 2025 and as they will be in College Football 26 for the playoff, with the top 5 ranked conference champions getting an automatic qualifier into the playoff. And then you don't have anybody really getting a free ride. You need to have a truly exceptional season to make it in. One wrinkle of that is I also made all of the power conferences 10 teams, so you have to play everybody in your conference with the 9-team conference schedule to actually win your conference. You have to play them every single season. So if you win your conference, you go to a conference championship game, you truly are the best team in your conference, and you truly have earned that spot because you're not only best team in your conference and the conference champion, but you have beat out at least one other power conference champion to get an automatic qualifier. Now, of course, they don't need to actually have the automatic qualifier each and every season. You can just be a top 12 team, but that at least keeps teams like Duke out of the college football playoff. So this is what that actually looks like here. First, I'll do the power conferences, and then we'll look at the non-power conferences. So the ACC is Clemson, Duke, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Miami, Penn State, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia. The Big 10 is Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Northwestern, Ohio State, Purdue, and Wisconsin. Big 12, BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, Kansas, Kansas State, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Utah. Conference USA, which is actually the Southwest Conference. The Big 12 is actually the Big 8 Conference, but of course, we can't change conference names in this stupid game. Conference USA is Arkansas, Baylor, Houston, LSU, SMU, TCU, Texas, A&M, Texas Tech, and Tulane. Pac-12 is the old school Pac-10, Arizona, Arizona State, Cal, Oregon, Oregon State, Stanford, UCLA, USC, Washington, and Washington State. Finally, the SEC is Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. So all those teams have to win their conferences to get an automatic qualifier. Now, we also have the automatic qualifiers for the other conferences in line as well, assuming that they would actually win. Those are 18, 19, or 20-team conferences that are kind of split geographically. So the American is like the Northeast. It's essentially North Carolina and up on the Eastern Seaboard, which was the best way to really get this going. So it's App State, Army, Boston College, Charlotte, Delaware, East Carolina, Florida Atlantic, JMU, Liberty, Maryland, NC State, Navy, North Carolina, ODU, Rutgers, Syracuse, UConn, Virginia, and Wake Forest. We saw Maryland and Rutgers both have good seasons in our last video where we realigned like the NBA. So maybe they could do well here because this is a kind of weaker conference. We have Notre Dame staying independent. I'm never going to put them in the conference just because I don't want to. Notre Dame is I'll only do it for specific videos, but for the most part, I'm going to keep them independent. That's what they want. That's what they get. The MAC, Akron, Ball State, Bowling Green, Buffalo, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, Eastern Michigan, Kent State, Marshall, Miami, Missouri State, Northern Illinois, Ohio, Temple, Toledo, UMass, Western Kentucky, and Western Michigan. I guess I could have put UMass in the American, but I didn't really see a big reason why to change the MAC around too much. Basically, this is Cincinnati's conference to lose. But again, that won't guarantee them a spot in the college football playoff because they're not going to be just being the strongest G5 champion doesn't necessarily make you a college football playoff team. You actually have to win into the top 12 most likely. The Mountain West is basically all of the Western teams. Air Force, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Hawaii, Nevada, New Mexico State, North Texas, Rice, Sam Houston, SDSU, SJSU, Texas State, Tulsa, UNLV, UTEP, UTSA, Utah State, and Wyoming. Finally, the Sun Belt is the Southeastern teams. Arkansas State, Coastal Carolina, FIU, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, Louisiana, Louisiana Tech, Memphis, Middle Tennessee State, or Middle Tennessee, I should say, South Alabama, Southern Miss, Troy, UAB, UCF, UL Monroe, and USF. So there are definitely some teams that could make runs out of these smaller conferences, but they're going to have to truly be exceptional, which is the point. So we're going to roll with Coastal because I want to keep an eye on the Sun Belt. I think that'll be an interesting conference with this setup. Well, we're going to do our regular 3 years, best team, best conference, all the things that we usually do. We're at 460, I think, at this point. We're trying to get to 500 before the end of the month. We had a couple more days left, so make sure that you subscribe, like the video, and be along for the ride as we get to 500, but we're going to go ahead and sim to the first CFP poll. 3 and 5 start for Coastal, not great, but it is a pretty damn good start for the Southwest Conference that we've got in the Conference USA this year with Texas and A&M both in the top 2 to start. Anything super abnormal. Alabama sometimes doesn't get this good right away. They're up there in the top. Florida's also up there in the top. Michigan, we haven't been seeing doing very well. With the new roster update, they are up in the top 10, along with Indiana out of the Big Ten. They haven't played each other yet, so we'll see how that ends up going out. We've got 3 2-loss teams already in the top 10, so we're starting to see a little bit of conference bias already with these 2-loss teams. Who's Clemson lost to? Clemson lost to LSU to open the season in a non-conference, and then they lost to Miami in the conference matchup in week 3. Other than that, they beat Penn State, who's terrible with this ACC lineup. They're 2 and 5, and they beat the FCS team. Not necessarily super great for Clemson. They've got a couple big matchups coming up down the pike. We've also got Ole Miss. We got what? It's week 10, and we've got 4 2-loss teams in the top 12. 2 more outs on the next 2 times. We've got 4 power conference teams with 1 loss on the outside looking in currently. Now, we're going to have one of those teams get another loss here this next week between USC and Oregon, or USC and Washington. Yeah, we've got a couple big games. USC, Washington, and Oregon also have to play each other later on in the season. They've all already coming in with 1 loss. So we might see the Pac-10 as the conference that drops out here. We've only got 2 undefeated teams. Oh, no, we got 4 undefeated teams. So Michigan, Indiana, Miami, and A&M are our undefeated teams. 2 in the Big Ten. They probably play soon, or do they play it like end of the season? Second to last game of the season, Michigan and Indiana is going to be a massive game. Ohio State has 3 losses. Not great. All right. So let's go ahead and sim to the conference championship games and see what the actual bracket might look like. Not a good season for Coastal, but we did kind of see things even out here a little bit. So the ACC championship, not surprising, Miami and Clemson. The American championship, with the way that we set this up in College Football 26, I knew that we were going to have some teams dominating in these non-power conferences that we put together. The American makes a lot of sense. North Carolina and Virginia both 11-1. North Carolina should probably be in either way. And we'll see if Virginia could get in with a win there. We'll go through it. Oklahoma is 10-2 and number 3 in the country. Got a 1-loss Miami team at 11-1, or at 5 in the country. So why does that make sense? Michigan and Indiana. Michigan did get the win in that game in the second to last week of the season. We get a rematch here. Both teams should probably be in. A&M was number 2 in the country. They did lose a game between when we looked at it and now, but they got up to number 1 in the country. They should be in either way. Texas Tech is on the borderline there. Toledo is one of our only other ranked non-Power 6 teams, with the North Carolina and Virginia obviously being the other 2. Oregon did do well. They've won out since the last time we watched. They should be in either way. Washington made it in, so that probably means that USC dropped 2 more games, at least from when we saw them with 1 loss on the first CFP poll. The SEC championship game, probably. So if Texas Tech wins, they should be in either way, but this is for a playoff spot for sure. And USF actually is ranked as well in the Sun Belt. So, okay. So let's just see what it is. So this is guaranteed 1, guaranteed 2, guaranteed, guaranteed 1, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. North Carolina or Oregon is 5. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Texas Tech is probably the team that could win from the outside to make it in. Other than that, I don't think that anybody else that's not currently in the top 12 really has a chance to jump up, regardless of what happens in the conference championship games, unless like Utah and Washington both win. then even then you're probably maybe looking at Virginia or USF, but doesn't look super likely. What are we missing from the top 25? So all of these teams were in. Notre Dame, 9-3 as an independent, gets into the college football playoff. Who did they lost to? They lost to number 5 Miami on the road, lost against North Carolina and USC. So all of their ranked games they played, they lost. They won 9 other games, beating Pitt by 2, NC State by 1, Navy, who's 4-7, by 8. They killed Boston College, who was a bowl game. That's probably their best win of the season. They beat New Mexico by a touchdown. They beat Syracuse by 3 and Stanford by 14. That gets them into the playoff. There you go. There you go, folks. You know why? Combined record 92-51 is a very good combined record of teams, but they lost to the 3 teams that had 9+ wins. Or I guess they got 1 win against another 9+ wins. So that's what? 31 of your 92 wins. Over a third of your wins are to teams that you lost to. So how does that add in? Anyway, Clemson we didn't see in there. Louisville we didn't see in there. Okay, so Louisville continues their streak of doing really well with this new roster update. Louisville is somewhat on the border, though, depending on what happens in this SEC championship game, which really got hurt by the last week of the season, by the way, and what happens with Texas Tech. A&M also knocked Texas out of the playoff in the final week, beating them by 30+ points. All right, let's see what the bracket ends up looking like. Surprise, surprise, Mateer wins the Heisman, 3,500 yards, 34 touchdowns. I really do like the video with the Coastal Carolina colors in the back. What does our bracket look like here? Okay, so Texas Tech did find their way in. Looks like Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. So our automatic qualifiers are the Pac-10 gets the number 1 automatic qualifier, ACC with Clemson getting one. The American did end up getting one of our automatic qualifiers. This is why you do it this way instead of having specifically assigned automatic qualifiers, because the American snuck in with North Carolina to get an automatic qualifier. Indiana gets another automatic qualifier from the Big Ten, and then the Alabama, the SEC. So 4 of our Power 6, the Big 8 and the Southwest Conference both missed out on automatic qualifiers, but Southwest Conference gets A&M and Texas Tech in, and the Big 8 gets Oklahoma in, so they still get into the playoff regardless of the automatic qualifiers. So Indiana, Big 10 champion against Texas Tech in the first round. Interesting that Indiana won the Big 10 championship game, avenging their loss against Michigan earlier in the season, and still is ranked 2 spots lower than Michigan with the same record. And I guess that matters margin of victory between those 2 games. Either way, they're both in. Indiana and Texas Tech, winner takes on ACC champion Clemson, are 3-loss first-round bye team. Miami and Oklahoma are in the 8-9. Winner goes against A&M. No conference champions in that. Well, Oklahoma's probably a conference champion. No, they're not. They're not a conference champion because otherwise Alabama wouldn't have gotten an automatic qualifier. Notre Dame are 1 independent team facing off against Alabama. What's that? Like the 2012 BCS championship? Winner takes on Michigan in the Cotton Bowl, and then North Carolina and Louisville in our most interesting matchup, with the winner taking on Oregon in the Rose Bowl. These are the kind of things that I like to see in our videos. North Carolina and Louisville in the first round. All right, so from the Pac-10, we have 1 with Oregon. From the Southwest Conference or Conference USA, we have 2 with A&M and Texas Tech. From our Big Ten Conference, we have 2, Indiana and Michigan. From our ACC, we have 3, Clemson, Miami, and Louisville. From the American, we have 1. We have 1 independent, and we have 1 SEC team with Alabama. North Carolina might be on a destiny run by virtue of my hatred from this conference alignment. I don't hate North Carolina, but that's how North Carolina fans will take it. 41-14 over Louisville, getting revenge on the ACC team that stays up as they drop down to the American. They will take on Oregon in the 2-7 matchup. North Carolina did host that game in Chapel Hill, so big win there for North Carolina. Alabama gets the win, crushing victory over Notre Dame, who did not belong in the playoff with their 3 losses against their only 3 ranked teams. It shows in the first round as they lose 42-14 at home against Alabama. Alabama will take on Michigan in the second round. Was that the first round matchup of the 2023 playoff? I think it was. Michigan beat Alabama in the first round. Washington beat somebody else. Miami gets a win 31-5 over Oklahoma. That's a scoregami, I'm sure. They will take on A&M in the second round. That's a rematch of this year's first round playoff game. And then Indiana gets a big win over Texas Tech 41-23. They will take on Clemson. So 2 Big Ten teams in the quarterfinal, 2 ACC teams, and then 1 from each of the Pac-10, the American, the SEC, and the Southwest Conference. Only 1 bye team gets the win. That's Oregon, 51-14 over North Carolina. Their destiny run is over, but a great season for the first time for North Carolina. Can they be the team that dominates the American, makes the playoff multiple times? We'll see. Oregon will take on Alabama after they get a win 45-28. Pretty good start to the playoff for Alabama so far. 2 versus 11, Oregon, Alabama in the Fiesta Bowl. Miami gets a squeaky win against A&M, 24-21. I think they won by 3 in the first round as well this year. They get past. They will face off against Indiana in a rematch of this year's national championship game. Indiana gets a 6-point win over Clemson in the 4-5. So it's Indiana, Miami in the Peach Bowl in a rematch of this year's national championship game. I just realized that Miami got their home game in the second round, despite being the 1 versus 8 in the Orange Bowl. They could get another home game if they get the win over Indiana here. Then it's Oregon, Alabama. So 4 different conferences: ACC, Big Ten, SEC, and Pac-10 in the semifinal in the first year. Miami can't get the revenge for the national championship game. Indiana 35-14 over Miami. Alabama also gets the win by double digits, 37-27 over the Ducks. So it's 5 versus 11. Big Ten versus the SEC in the national championship game in our first season. And it's Indiana who comes out on top with a 1-point victory. I don't think it went to overtime. No, it didn't go to overtime. They actually were close to losing it at the end there. Did Alabama go for 2? Maybe. Maybe Alabama went for 2. I think, no, they probably went for 2 in the third quarter as a part of their comeback. So they kicked a couple field goals at the end is what we're going to, I guess we can figure it out. Did they kick a couple field goals at the end? Where's field goals? Of course, they don't have field goals. Okay, kicking. No, they missed an extra point at some point. So maybe they did go for 2 at the end and lost it. Either way, Alabama falls short by 1. Indiana gets the win in the first season. Big Ten takes the lead as far as best conference, and Indiana takes the lead as far as best team in the first season of the video. All right, we've got some changes here in the top 10 or top 12 this year. Notre Dame is still back up there. Maybe we should have put them in a conference because they seem to be getting away with a few things here. Did get a big win over Miami this year, which they lost last year, and they beat North Carolina, who doesn't look to be doing as well this year. But they did lose to 3-5 Wisconsin, and they're still a top 3 team, which, but they'll have to, they don't even have to beat USC at the end. They're going to be in the playoff again this year. Oregon, Oklahoma are both undefeated so far. Oregon just got a big win over USC. Michigan, who made the playoff as a bye team last year, number 3 in the country, they're up there again. Texas made it. Texas didn't make it. Texas got kicked out by A&M at the end of last season in the last week, so they're up there. Nebraska and Utah out of our Big 8 conference are both up in the top 10. We didn't see Ohio State up there last year. Looks like they're going to be able to make a run to the top of the Big 10. Big game in a couple weeks between Ohio State and Michigan, probably a top 10 matchup if both can win up till then. Duke just lost to Clemson, but they are in the top 10. That is not surprising. They tend to be a pretty good team as you get a little further into the sim. Florida, up there again. They didn't make it in last year, but they were one of the better SEC teams. Anything super surprising? Boise State moving up. We could see them towards the end of the season with the shakeups that we're going to get. A lot of ranked teams here playing against each other in the final weeks of the season here. So we'll see what actually ends up happening as we go to the conference championships. 6-6 for Coastal this year, so we'll make a bowl game. We'll see if we can make a run in the final season in the Sun Belt Conference. Texas last year lost out after being in the top 12 in the first CFP poll. Yet again, that happened this year. So we'll see if we get a Southwest Conference team. 16 versus 19 doesn't look like we're going to get it there. Oregon and USC in the Pac-12 championship game. Last year was Oregon-Washington. Washington was not a ranked team. Looks like we're going to get 2 out of the Pac-10 this year with both Oregon and USC. At least one of them will be a bye team this year. Boise State maybe has an outside chance of making it in. We got a couple ranked G4 teams, I guess, in this setup, but we'll see if any of them make it in. Boise State, it looks like the highest ranked out of all of them. North Carolina did make it in out of the American last year, so it's not uncommon to see those up there. We have 2 teams that are going to make it in out of the Big 8. Oklahoma made it in last year and lost. They only scored 5 points in their game. Nebraska is a new one. It looks like unless they lose terribly, they will be in again. Nobody from the MAC. Nobody from the Sun Belt, but UAB is number 18 in the country, so an improvement from them. The American won't make it back in unless we're missing something. I know that North Carolina was doing worse this season. Syracuse at number 22 will not be able to make it in. Alabama should be back in from the SEC this year. Maybe Auburn makes it in. Pitt and Duke look like they're going to both make it out of the ACC. Again, for whatever reason, that's what happens in college football 26. Pitt and Duke become dominant teams in the second and third year of a dynasty. And then we get a rematch between Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan got the win at the end of the season in this matchup. We'll see if Ohio State can get the win last year. That's essentially the same thing that happened with Michigan last year. They beat Indiana in the second to last game of the season. Indiana ended up winning the conference championship game, getting in as the 5 seed and winning the national championship. So we'll see if history repeats itself this season for Ohio State. So what are we missing from the top 25? Like we said, Notre Dame was going to be back in the playoff. They lost the last game to USC. It didn't end up mattering because they got that win early on against Miami, who ends up 7-5. Really, their best win of the season is a pretty dominant win over Stanford, who also went 7-5. We got a top 25 ranking, and I guess a pretty dominant win against Syracuse, but both of those teams are in the top 20. They went 10-2. They still find a way to get into the playoff again this season. Georgia also made it in, and Utah is right on the edge there. So we'll see how that actually turns out, because I think we have 5 champions up there. Utah could end up making it in and being the 3rd team from the Big 8 this year, with the Southwest Conference missing out, kind of opposite of what happened last year. I think Texas getting the win by 3 over A&M, gets revenge for A&M knocking them out last year, and in this case, we will get no Southwest Conference teams after having 2 in the first season. Back-to-back Oklahoma quarterbacks as the Heisman Trophy winner this year. It's Devin Dampier, who I think this is like his 3rd or 4th season or video in a row in which he's won a Heisman, and I think they're almost all at different teams. I think he won one with Utah. Last video, he won one with Texas. This time, it's with Oklahoma. If you're doing a sim, look out for Devin Dampier in your transfer portal in the 2nd season. He can get you high up in the playoff as well as a Heisman Trophy. 3,100 yards, 36 touchdowns, probably even more on the ground from what we've seen so far. We will end up playing in the Cheez-It Bowl, the Citrus Bowl against Air Force. So that's Mountain West versus the Sun Belt in the Cheez-It Bowl this year. What ended up happening in the bracket is the question. So Oklahoma is the number 1 overall team. They're 13-0 with the Heisman Trophy. Oklahoma is on the road to being the best team. Last year's winner, Indiana, is not in this year. Alabama, who was our runner-up, is in this year. They're the number 5 team. They're facing off against Ohio State, who makes it in for the first time. Even though they lost in the Big Ten championship game, they still find a way in. Winner of that game takes on a newcomer this year as well, with Pitt out of the ACC being the ACC champion this year. They will face off in the Cotton Bowl. Duke and Nebraska, 2 good teams in college football 26 that are not necessarily good in real life, face off in the 8 versus 9 with the winner taking on Oklahoma, that number 1 seed like we talked about. USC and Utah will face off in the 6-11 matchup. Utah does get in from the Big 8 conference, so we have 3 teams from the Big 8 conference. USC makes it in after missing out last year. They lost the Pac-10 championship game, but still get the 6 seed. They'll host Utah, with the winner taking on Michigan, who is the 3 seed for 2 years in a row. Oregon is the 2 seed for 2 years in a row, this time 13-0 Pac-10 champion. They'll take on the winner of Notre Dame, who yet again does not deserve to be in the playoff as an independent, and Georgia, who gets in as the SEC representative after losing in the conference. No, it was Alabama-Auburn in the conference championship game. Georgia gets in as a non-conference champion participant, 9-3 team, much like Utah. The winner of that game will take on Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. So Pac-10, we get 2 this year after only having 1 the first season, 3 for the Big 8 after having 1 last season, 2 for the Big Ten are 2 for the Big Ten yet again this season with Michigan and Ohio State. 2 for the ACC with Pitt and Duke. 2 for the SEC after only having 1 last season. And like I mentioned, Notre Dame is back in for the 2nd straight year. A bunch of upsets in the first round. Aside from the top game, Alabama does get the win 43-33. They're trying to make it back to the national championship game for the 2nd straight season. But other than that, it's all upsets. Nebraska gets the win by 7 over Duke. So it is a rematch of the Big 8 championship game between Oklahoma and Nebraska in the Peach Bowl. Utah gets the win over USC by 3 touchdowns in a classic Pac-12 matchup. This time we get the Kyle Whittingham Bowl in the quarterfinal, 3 versus 11, Michigan and Utah. And then Georgia gets the win over Notre Dame. Notre Dame, 2 straight losses in the college football playoff after not deserving to make it in either season. I'm going to keep saying it. If they make it again the next season, they get a 10-point loss to Georgia. Georgia will take on Oregon in the Dan Lanning Bowl in the Fiesta Bowl. So we have 2 SEC teams in the quarterfinal with Georgia and Alabama, 1 ACC team with Pitt, 3 Big 8 teams, which is a big step for the Big 8, and then our 1 Pac-10 team and 1 Big 10 team with Oregon and Michigan, respectively. We lost our bowl game at Coastal. We're 6-7, so 2 straight losing seasons, but we'll probably keep our job after making the bowl game. The SEC is pretty dominant here in the quarterfinal. Georgia wins by 31. Alabama wins by 21. They both move on to the semifinal. We also have Oklahoma moving on, keeping their undefeated season alive after the 35-29 victory over Nebraska. Oklahoma gets a win here in the national championship game. They take a pretty big lead in the best team in the video with 2 Heismans, 2 appearances so far, and would be a 16-0 season if they can make it that far. So Oklahoma is one to look out for in these final 2 games. Michigan wins the Kyle Whittingham Bowl by 3, 24-21 over Utah, which is a bummer. I want to see Utah make a run here in College Football 26. I think that they have it in them at some point. We're going to get an alignment. It's hard because you can't change the playoff around, so the best teams tend to win in the playoff, but we've figured out some pretty good successes in alignments in getting new teams into the playoff, at least in the first couple seasons. So if we go really far on, we're going to see a bunch of different teams, but I'm really talking about, our usual 3 years in the video. Michigan and Georgia will face off in the Rose Bowl, which that definitely was I think it was the national champion. No, they didn't make it to the national championship before they won Michigan. So it was a college football playoff game in 2021 or 2022. I can't remember. Alabama, Oklahoma in the top in the Sugar Bowl. So 1 versus 5, 3 versus 10. 2 SEC teams make it into the semifinal after having a runner-up last year. And we will at least have another SEC runner-up this year. Georgia gets the win 42-23 over Michigan. The number 10 team makes it to the national championship game. I think Alabama was number 11 last year, and they made it to the national championship game. So the SEC double-digit seeds are having success. Alabama falls short this year. They lose 42-32 to Oklahoma. So it's Oklahoma, Georgia. Oklahoma looking for their undefeated season, Heisman Trophy, national championship, all of the things with their second Heisman Trophy winning season to maybe take a massive lead in best team in the video. Georgia didn't make the playoff last year, so they would tie with Indiana as best team in the video, right? They didn't make the playoff last year? I don't think they did. I'll double check, but they did not. If they didn't, they would tie with Indiana for best team in the video so far. Oklahoma would take a big lead. And Oklahoma ends up getting the win. They finish off their perfect season, 16-0. I did double check. Georgia didn't make it last season. Oklahoma takes a massive lead in best team in the video with this win. 2 straight Heisman Trophy winning seasons, 2 straight playoff seasons, and they get a 16-0 undefeated season with the national championship. They are the best team in the video so far. And I would say that the Big 8 at least ties the Big 10 as far as best conference in the video. They had 3 teams in the quarterfinal this year. The Big 10 has had 2 straight seasons with 2 teams in. And Oklahoma has this massive season. So I would say that the Big 8 takes a slight lead as best conference in the video, along with Oklahoma taking the lead as best team in the video. But we've got another season to go. We've got a couple teams that have made it in 2 years in a row. Oregon, Alabama. Alabama is close up there. Michigan. It's a couple teams that could make a run. Notre Dame even could make a run at best team in the video, but it's going to have to be an incredible season to beat out Oklahoma of what they've done so far, and really have to hope that Oklahoma doesn't make it again next season. I think last year we tuned in when Oregon had just gotten a win over USC. They did it again this year. USC, this must have been a top 5 matchup, and it was at USC. They get the win 42-40. We see a lot of the teams that we've seen so far in the top 10, although we do have 2 American teams here, Syracuse and NC State, both in the top 10. Doesn't look like they've played each other, but they don't necessarily have to play each other. They will, but they don't necessarily have to play each other because these are 20, I think it's a 19-team conference, 18 or 19-team conference in the American. So this is a huge matchup here. Hopefully, they both can end up getting in. We'll see. We thought that, North Carolina made it in from the American in the first season. See if they get another one this season. Looks like they'll at least get one unless both teams fall apart. Oklahoma is going to run away with this. They have dominated the first 2 seasons in the Big 8. They look like they're going to probably get to the conference championship again this year, probably unscathed. Maybe they have somebody show up here towards the end and give them a run for their money, but the conference doesn't look very good this year outside of Nebraska, which, why are they not playing Nebraska? Did I not put 1, 2, 3, 4? Fuck. They're playing 5? That doesn't make any sense. Why would they be playing 5 non-conference games? I put them at 9 conference. Anyway, Nebraska is up there too, so we'll see. But Oklahoma, even just making the playoffs again this year, probably locks down best team in the video. Louisville is back up there. They made the playoffs the first season. We see Ole Miss up there for the first time. Auburn was on the outside looking in last year after their SEC championship game loss. We'll see if they can get up in there in these final couple weeks of the season. Anything else super interesting? Virginia Tech, another American team with Boston College, and Boise State's back up in the top 25 again this year. So we'll see. Let's go to the conference championship games. We've been 3-9 at Coastal this year. I would imagine I get fired at the end of the season. All right, so the SWC missed out last season. They should be back in with at least one team, and it comes down to A&M and Texas yet again. They've traded off, knocking each other out in the final week of the season. This year, Texas could knock A&M out again with a win. A&M could find themselves in there with a win as well. San Jose State has a chance to be in the playoff with a win over New Mexico. We'll see how that ends up happening at the end there. We've also got NC State and Syracuse who are looking to get in there. A couple G4 teams with our setup looking to be in there. And we have 3 ranked G4 championship games with the Mountain West, the MAC, or the Mountain West, the SBC, and the American, with the American most likely to get somebody in, especially NC State there. Alabama should be in for the 3rd straight season. They can make a run at best team in the video, although Oklahoma is the number 1 team in the country going into this final game as well. So we'll see how that ends up happening. Louisville, number 3 in the country. We can see them making a run. That would be an interesting end to the video. And Michigan's looking to get in for the 3rd straight season, as well as Oregon looking to get in for the 3rd straight season. All right, so Notre Dame is in yet again. This time they're the number 2, so they must have gotten the win against USC at the end. We won't get 2 teams out of the Pac-10 again. The Big 8 is going to be the best conference in the video. Missouri getting in. They're going to get another 3 teams in this year. That is a very, very good run by the Big 8, especially with Oklahoma kind of dominating. So Texas actually got the win. Looks like Texas got the win here last week, or the final week of the regular season for these 2 teams, by 10. Now A&M has a chance to win to get in, or Texas could beat them twice in a row to knock them out, which would be the final blow in that rivalry that we've seen going back and forth so far. Yeah, USC ended up losing out of the playoff with that loss to Notre Dame. San Jose State is going to have a real tough time getting up in there. They would need A&M, Michigan, NC State, and Ole Miss all to lose big, maybe even Nebraska to lose big to see if they could sneak their way up in there. They are 11-1. They do have a top 20 matchup, so we could see that end up happening, but we'll see. San Jose State would be a surprising team to get in there, but it would be a great end to the video to have them in the playoff, especially with NC State or Syracuse. That would be very interesting. We'll see how it works. All right, here we go. NC State gets the Heisman Trophy winner, Will Wilson. Probably the best season we've seen so far from a Heisman winner. Almost 4,000 yards, 33 touchdowns. Quite a good season, and I think that NC State should have made the college football playoff with that Heisman Trophy winner, and yes, they did. They got in at 11. Texas A&M also found a way to stay in despite losing for the 2nd straight time to Texas at the end there. Notre Dame got the number 1 overall fucking seed. What the fuck is that? Okay, well, we got a couple new teams in this year. Oregon went 13-0 and ended up as the 7 seed somehow. This is all screwed up, and San Jose State did get in. I want to look at what happened with San Jose State before we go any further. I want to see how far up they ended up getting. They lost. Doesn't matter. They lost. Boston College gets all the way up to 15. They probably could have gotten up there. If they would have won the game, they probably could have ended up getting in as the 11 or as the 12 seed for San Jose State, but they didn't pull it off, so we didn't get that. Anyway, we do get a pretty cool playoff. So, Louisville ended up losing the ACC championship game. They don't get a top 4 seed. What we do get is Notre Dame is the number 1 overall seed. Oklahoma is the number 3. They also lost their conference championship game. Alabama gets the number 2 seed. So the teams that we're really watching are down there at the bottom. Oklahoma and Alabama. I think that Oklahoma has essentially sealed it up. They've got Heisman, undefeated season, another Heisman. This is their 3rd appearance in the playoffs. They should have it basically sealed up. But all the teams that have made it all 3 seasons, aside from Notre Dame, are at the bottom, with Oklahoma, Alabama, and Oregon all down there, making it 3 times so far in the video. Notre Dame has also made it 3 times. They are the number 1 overall seed, so we'll see how that turns out. Clemson and A&M with the matchup in the first round. A&M gets a chance to play Texas again if they get that win. They've already lost twice in a row to Texas. Can they make it a 3rd time in one season losing to Texas? That would be a rough end to their season and rough end to the video for them. Missouri and Louisville, very interesting matchup. I really do like that one. I think that, do Missouri and Kentucky touch? If not, they're very close. This could be a rivalry. This could have been a rivalry in some different history of the way things went. Louisville and Missouri could have been a rivalry way back in the day. They end up not being, but this time they get a face-off with the winner taking on Notre Dame. All those teams could have been in the conference together. I'm pretty sure all of those states touch. Maybe I'm a little bit off, but I'm pretty sure they're all within driving distance for sure with where all those teams are. So this could have been a little rivalry pod here that we have. Missouri and Louisville, the winner taking on Notre Dame in the Peach Bowl. Nebraska and NC State. NC State has the Heisman Trophy winner. If NC State wins, we get Oklahoma, NC State. The 3 Heisman Trophy winners we've had so far have come from those 2 schools. If Nebraska wins, it's a rematch of the Big 8 championship game in which Nebraska did actually win, so maybe they could get an upset there. Then Oregon and Michigan. Actually, Michigan has made it all 3 times as well. So Oregon and Michigan face off. Oregon is going to have, if they win, they could end up facing against Oregon or Michigan. If the winner of this team could end up facing all the teams that have made 3 straight playoffs, with Alabama, Oklahoma, and Notre Dame all potentially being in their path going forward. So that's an interesting game there at the bottom. Winner takes on Alabama, who has probably been the 2nd best team so far, although Indiana did get the first victory. Alabama has been in the semifinal and the national championship in the last 2 seasons. So we do get 2 Southwest Conference teams in this year after missing out last season. Notre Dame, as the independent team, gets in. We have 1 ACC team, or 2 ACC teams with Clemson and Louisville, 3 Big 8 teams, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Missouri. 1 American team for the 2nd time, NC State. So North Carolina and NC State, 2 teams that we dropped from the ACC that I said North Carolina fans would be pissed about. They end up making the college football playoff in our Sims. Michigan makes it for the 3rd straight time out of the Big 10. They're the only one out of the Big 10. Oregon makes it for the 3rd straight time out of the Pac-10. They're the only one out of the Pac-10. And Alabama makes it for the 3rd straight time out of the SEC. They're the only team from the SEC. So we'll see how it ends up turning out here, but I think the Big 8 has sealed up best conference. A&M doesn't get a chance to lose again to Texas because they lose to Clemson by 6 in the first round on the road. So it's Clemson, Texas in the Rose Bowl. Louisville gets the upset win on the road against Missouri, 44-23. They will take on Notre Dame in the Peach Bowl. We do get a rematch of our Big 8 championship game, 38-17, Nebraska over Heisman Trophy winner Will Wilson and NC State. So it's Nebraska and Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl with a rematch of the Big 8 championship game that Nebraska has won. Of course, Oklahoma is our defending national champion. We get Alabama and Michigan after Michigan gets the 45-30 win. Those are 2 teams that have made 3 straight playoffs. As we mentioned, Michigan could meet all 4 of the teams that are in that have made 3 straight playoffs, depending on what happens with Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and themselves. So we get 1 Big 10 team, 2 Big 8 teams, 2 ACC teams, 1 Southwest Conference team, 1 SEC team, and 1 independent in our quarterfinal. Notre Dame, despite making 3 straight college football playoffs and moving up in rank each and every season, ends up losing their third straight playoff game, 34-24 to Louisville, who moves on to face off against Texas, who beat Clemson 35-31. Oklahoma is yet again in the semifinal after winning the national championship last season. Oklahoma wins 41-6 over Nebraska, and Michigan will face its third straight three-time playoff team in Oklahoma after beating Alabama by 2 touchdowns in the Sugar Bowl. Oklahoma, Michigan, Big Ten, Big 8. Then we've got the Southwest Conference versus the ACC in the top with Texas versus Louisville. Come on, Louisville. Can you finish off with a national championship? That would make this video absolutely perfect. Louisville cannot close it out. They end up losing 45-29, so Texas gets into the national championship game. Well, they will face off against defending national champion Oklahoma. And of course, the Red River Shootout in the national championship game. Oklahoma has won this game pretty consistently through the first 3 seasons. So this could be a big upset for Oklahoma in New Orleans. Oklahoma did get, or big upset for Texas, I should say. Oklahoma got a win in double overtime over Michigan to get into the national championship this season. Oklahoma far and away has been the best team in the video so far, and they can really seal that up with a second national championship here in 2027 in the Red River Shootout matchup. The Big 8 obviously is the best conference in the video as well. Southwest Conference missed out on the playoff last year, so they are eliminated from that, and none of the other teams doubled up. Michigan could have got it to the Big Ten if they would have pulled out that double overtime victory, but Oklahoma gets the win, so we have Oklahoma and Texas in a battle for the final national championship with everything else wrapped up. I was about to induct this Oklahoma run into the Bucky Barracks Hall of Fame. I was gonna hang the banner on the rafters, but Texas comes in with the upset victory at the end. They get the win 41-36 in the final national championship game, denying the back-to-back for Oklahoma, denying the sweep in the Red River Shootout for Oklahoma throughout this video, and denying Oklahoma from a spot in the Bucky Barracks Rafters Hall of Fame for a run in a 3-season sim. I do want to start to kind of bake some best teams in. I want to put some numbers to what makes a best team. I want to kind of put, like, what does a Heisman mean? What does a playoff appearance mean? What does a first round bye mean? What does a semifinal national championship runner-up? I want to put points to that, so I'm going to try to work that together and see what we could do, because then I want to start to put together a Hall of Fame. I just want to kind of put some stats together for these videos, so it's not just all these different kind of alignments and see how it is. I want to kind of see from video to video what makes a really, really good team. So that is one thing that we'll look at. Big win for Texas here. Oklahoma tried to make a big comeback in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't enough. Texas ends up getting the win 41-36. A great video from Oklahoma. Still the best team in the video. Still the best conference in the video for the Big 8. But Texas denies the Hall of Fame appearance for Oklahoma. I'm going to work on that lineup thing, and we'll talk about it either this week or next week as far as what makes the best team in the video. And then if team does, or what makes Hall of Fame team, all those kind of things. And if a team does end up making the Hall of Fame, we'll do a short about them so that we can kind of enshrine that and go through all of their accomplishments. But thanks for watching this video. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll check you next time. See ya!